Welcome back to TLDR's daily briefing for Tuesday the 4th of March 2025. In today's episode, we cover Trump's US-Mexico-Canada trade war, a brawl in Serbia's parliament, and Ireland's Peacekeeper plans. But first, Donald Trump suspends military aid to Ukraine. Yesterday, US President Donald Trump announced the suspension of US military aid to Ukraine. It comes after a dramatic blow-up in the White House last Friday, during which Donald Trump, infuriated over the collapse of a deal that would give the US access to Ukraine's mineral resources, told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky this.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
Zelensky was asked to say sorry and to come back when he is ready for peace. The White House's halt in military assistance marks a considerable change from the steady flow of US military supplies, including arms, to Ukraine since Russia's full-scale invasion began 3 years ago. Sources close to the administration revealed that Trump is examining the impact of US aid on advancing peace talks, with a White House official stating, "Trump has been clear that he is focused on peace. We need our partners to be committed to that goal as well." The halt in US military supplies, which constitute around a third of Ukraine's total military aid, poses significant risks for Kyiv. However, a senior administration official told Fox News that this is not a permanent termination of aid, it's a pause. Still, American military aid has been pivotal against Russia's aggression. The US has given Ukraine the ability to carry out long-range strikes, with 2 different kinds of missiles. The US has limited their use inside Russia, but they have still been vital to hit high-value targets inside occupied territories. And it's not just quality but quantity too. As the world's most powerful military, the US has been able to send hundreds of surplus Humvees and armoured vehicles, numbers that smaller European armies could never match. The absence of some of this aid may take time to filter down to the front line. But no NATO ally can match the US in terms of space-based surveillance, intelligence gathering, and communication, such as Elon Musk's Pentagon-funded Starlink satellite communication network, which are used on Ukraine's front lines to relay the latest information on the battlefield. They've also been essential to coordinate artillery and drone strikes. Condemnation of the aid suspension was swift from Kyiv. The chair of the Ukrainian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee described Trump's move as unbelievable and a serious setback. Meanwhile, analysts at the Institute for the Study of War cautioned that this decision could embolden Russia to expand its territorial claims in Ukraine, undermining Trump's professed goal of establishing peace. The EU, fearful of an emboldened Russia, will be holding an emergency summit on Thursday to discuss how the bloc can strengthen its defense industry and increase military capabilities in light of the US's abandonment of Ukraine. Ahead of that summit, the European Commission today proposed borrowing up to €150 billion to lend to EU governments to help them boost military spending. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, "We are living in the most momentous and dangerous of times. We are in an era of rearmament, and Europe is ready to massively boost its defense spending." You're listening to TLDR's Daily Briefing. If you want more explainers on what's happening in the world, then you should check out TLDR's YouTube channels. Today, we release videos on Trump's warming up to Russia and the UK government's crime and policing bill. You can find the videos linked in the description or show notes for this episode, or by searching for TLDR on YouTube. Donald Trump's long-threatened 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada came into effect first thing on Tuesday, as did an extra 10% tariff on Chinese imports, kicking off a trade war that has rattled US markets. China has vowed to fight any trade war to the bitter end, and announced tariffs of up to 15% on a variety of American products, particularly agricultural goods. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that Canada will not let this unjustified decision go unanswered, and set out plans to impose 25% tariffs on $155 billion worth of US goods. He is also exploring several non-tariff measures in the event that Trump's tariffs do not cease. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said retaliatory tariffs and non-tariff measures would be announced on Sunday. The 3 major stock market indexes in the US fell as Trump made clear that the trade war would go ahead, and US stock losses continued upon opening on Tuesday morning. Moving to Europe now, where chaos erupted in the Serbian parliament today as lawmakers gathered for the first spring parliamentary session. Some opposition MPs lit flares and threw smoke bombs, and a brawl broke out among several MPs. It comes in support of the mass protests, sparked by the deadly collapse of a railway station roof last November, continuing to put pressure on President Alexander Vucic's decade-long rule. Ahead of Tuesday's parliamentary session, ruling coalition MPs had proposed a number of laws, including one of the key demands of youth protesters to be adopted at the session before Parliament confirmed the resignation of Prime Minister Miloš Vučević. Opposition MPs rejected this agenda, saying that the resignation of the Prime Minister should be confirmed first. At least 3 lawmakers were reportedly injured, but despite the chaos, the agenda was approved and the session continued. Protest leaders have called for a major rally in the capital Belgrade on March the 15th. The government of Ireland has proposed legislation that would relax the militarily neutral country's rules on deploying Irish peacekeepers overseas, and is open to joining a future European peacekeeping mission in Ukraine. Under the current rules, there is a so-called triple lock on the deployment overseas of more than 12 Irish troops, which requires approval from the Irish Cabinet, Parliament, and the United Nations Security Council. Foreign and Defence Minister Simon Harris has proposed reforming this to a double lock by scrapping the need for the UN Security Council approval and increasing the deployment size required to trigger the lock from 12 to 50. Harris said the current triple lock means that countries like Russia have the power to veto Ireland's participation in international missions through their Permanent Security Council status, and said that his proposed amendments in no way affect Ireland's military neutrality. That's all for today. We'll be back with you tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. In the meantime, if you want to support the show, then consider grabbing a copy of our physical magazine, Too Long. The next edition, coming out in April, covers the world's 25 most influential people, as ranked by us, the TLDR team, and you, the TLDR audience. Inside, we unpack who these influential people are, explain how they got their influence, and tell stories about how they choose to wield this immense power. The entire thing is beautifully designed, contains a bunch of other stories, and runs over 72 pages of our best journalism. If you're interested, then use the code TLDRDaily at checkout to get £2 off your copy, which brings the cost of a subscription down as low as £5.99. Buying Too Long helps to fund all of our journalism, so make sure you do check it out. You can find the link in the podcast description. This was a TLDR News production, hosted by Georgina Findlay, written by Nadja Lovadinov and Rory Taylor, and produced by Scarlett Watchorn. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow.